You woke? Time to get up. Welcome to Thought You Woke No Speed Limit podcast. Today, I guess we're going to talk about Elizabeth II. So, I wanted to say something about the Elizabeth's death. She was the longest reigning monarch. She reigned for 70 years. She took over the throne in 1952 when her father, King George IV, died. He reigned a short period of time after his brother, King Edward VIII, gave up the throne due to a controversy over the fact that he was dating or having an affair with a married woman. And since he could not give up his relationship with this particular woman, he gave the throne to his brother. His brother then became king. He died in 1952. I think he ruled from 32 to 52, something like that, 20 years. And then Queen Elizabeth comes to power in 1952. Now, here's the thing. This family has been racked with all kind of controversy. You know, we can go back all the way back to one of Elizabeth's ancestors, King George III. You know, he was the madman of Great Britain. He was the one who lost the colonies to the Americans during the American Revolution. And apparently he went mad while he was on the throne. Became mentally ill, unstable. You know, there was a lot of things that happened to that. You know, his wife was supposedly, she said she was descended from possibly a person of mixed heritage who was African, of African heritage. So you know that has controversies come up in the throne about that the current queen may have been in the past related to, and this is a very outside the box thing that's related to them. They don't know exactly if that's true or not. I'm sure if we did a DNA test, we could find out. Right? Right. Um, Again, that's outside the box. The other controversies, the bigger ones, have been all the sex scandals in the family, from her own brother to one of her own children, or two of her children, Charles and Edward. Both of them apparently had affairs, and it's racism, the cause of racism with Meghan Markle and Harry. Meghan Markle is the first black family member, technically, first black member of the family. Um, and of course, there's been some cause of racism. And the monarchy period in Britain has no great history whatsoever. We can go all the way back to the how it was even formed. You know, Harold Hardrada was the king of England way back in the 1200s, 1090, something like that. And you had the war where he fought with Edward of Norman, and Edward of Norman one became the king of England. And eventually, that led to the, you know, to the conquest of Wales and other things like that. And we now have the British monarchy. Um, we can talk about the wars. You know, you watched the whole movie about King Edward the First came in conflict with William Wallace and the Scots as they tried to control that land, and that led to a war, more murder, more death. Maybe you've heard of the War of the Roses. If you watched Game of Thrones, it's like the Game of Thrones for England. That's what the War of Roses was. Basically, two houses uh, who fought against each other. I think one was called the House of Lancaster. Three sets of cousins. It ended up involving three sets of cousins because the Tudors eventually came to power after the Lancasters, and the other family just pretty much killed each other off. You know, it's sad because there were two kids involved. They were locked in the London Tower. They were 12 and 16 or something like that, 12 and 14. They were really young, and both of them were killed for fear that this one who came to power thought, well, if I don't get rid of them, then I won't be able to become king of England. So he killed them both, and in the end, he was slaughtered. He was killed also. it's a sad thing about the monarchy. And then in the process, there were what we call peasant rebellions, where people were literally killed. About 1,000 people. Their leadership was hung, and homes were burned, destroyed, all kinds of things. We can talk about all the terrible legacies of these monarchs that people hold on to as dear and near and dear to them. Um, that's a legacy. Queen Elizabeth is an indirect allocation in this. Her family is German, and that's another day, another story altogether. But she's had to fight off, things. They make these visits around the world to their these different colonies that are supposedly have the queen as the monarch on their throne. And there's some places where the queen is still considered the absolute power, but she actually does no ruling whatsoever. Because, like, again, this is a ceremonial seat that spends a lot of British money. A lot of British pounds are spent on the throne. And if you're thinking about heating and cooling this winter in Great Britain, you may think, why are we spending this money on two people who don't do anything except take up space? It's just ceremonial. It just looks good. Queen Elizabeth was, I served as an ambassador often. That's something they do. They do serve as an ambassador. They've made trips to Washington, D.C. They've made trips overseas. They've done these things. So you can say they have a semi-purpose in that, because they can be an ambassador to the world, but they hold no power whatsoever. So, like I said, their job is largely ceremonial. So I could basically, this is the way I see it. You could do away with all the money you spend on these guys for their properties, taking care of their properties, for their personal servants and all that stuff. You can take that money away. I'm sure those are jobs, and people don't want to lose their jobs. You can make those into museums, and those people can work in the museum. As far as I'm concerned. It's like you can just leave them the titles. Just give them the title. Here, you're king and queen. Your relatives, your kids get those titles. It means nothing because Parliament runs everything now. That's who runs everything in England. But the legacy of the Queen and Queen is this. We thought I was thinking about this when Barbados became independent last year, and I did you can go back and look. I did a podcast on that. Barbados became an independent state from Britain. Period. It shackled off. It took the king out of their thing. See, at first the king was the royal in their nation state, but then they said, no, we don't want that. We will have our own president, and we'll elect our own president, have our own Congress, that type of thing. Own assembly, however that works there. And they threw off the shackles of British rule. Barbados was a largely black country. Former African slaves under British rule a long time ago. But Britain outlawed slavery in 1848. Of course, there were several rebellions on even Jamaica. There were several rebellions in Barbados that we don't really talk about in our history classes because, of course, banning CRT really does exist in the world. Or really, I should say, banning real history does exist in the world. We always have to give our propaganda version of history, even when it comes to slavery, the slave trade, colonialism, and the horrors of colonialism. You got to think about this. These kings invoked because they were looking for more revenue and things to fund their wars against other kings, whether it be the king of France, whether it been the king of Germany, Denmark, wherever. They looked for more land and more territory where they could get more tax revenue. So the idea was, I give these merchants the opportunity to come over here and colonize places like Barbados, which once was occupied by Native Americans who fled the island after one battle after another with these colonials. And so then they bring their slaves that they've captured from Africa and places like that, and they bring them to farm the land because apparently the natives weren't good enough slaves. And we can talk about all that mistreatment at some other point, but this is the legacy of the kings and queens of England. We can even talk about the British crown jewels. Are they really theirs? They built their wealth off the back of conquest. They built their wealth off the back of people dying. This is how these folks came to power. This is how Britain was built to the Great Britain. It's called the British Empire. Imperialism is the worst thing in the world. I thought about the war. I actually cheered for Argentina when they were fighting in the Falklands, and I really didn't like Argentina either. I wanted the Falklands to be independent, but the British were fighting for their colonies so bad. I actually cheered for Argentina, and I wish Argentina had won that. I know British people don't want to hear that, and the problem, I'm going to get a lot of backlash, and y'all going to stop listening to my podcast. But I'm just being real. I have a problem now that I look at places in Nigeria. I looked at what happened in the Middle East. You know, we can say, well, that was during the parliamentary years. That really wasn't about the king and queen of England. But there were times when they tried to colonize those places. India, what happened in India? What happened in China? What happened in the Pacific Rim? There's nothing great about Great Britain as far as great that their past is horrible. Now they're trying to rectify here and now, you know, allowing countries to go independent, allowing them to break off, do whatever. King Charles even made a wonderful speech at the when Barbados was declaring their independence, and he told the truth about the legacy of slavery, the legacy of bigotry and hate from Great Britain. Queen Elizabeth has had to fight those controversies now with Meghan Markle, who says that the real reason that Harry and he said her children would not be allowed to have royal status because, well, Meghan Markle isn't royal. She's American. That's what they said, but then it has something to do more with the fact that she's black. Even though their father is Harry, the brother of William. William. I'm sorry, I had to do that one time. That's his brother. His brother is the future king of England. Maybe Charles will change it. Maybe Charles will restore those vestiges to the children of Meghan Markle and Harry. Maybe he'll restore that to them, and then restore Harry and Meghan Markle, which have been forced to step down from their roles with the royal family. Maybe that, even though that stuff's not really important, it's not. But there's a black woman in the royal family now, right? Maybe some other things will change. Maybe the way William brought up this whole thing about how we need to control the population in Africa. They don't need to do anything. The British need to get their butts out of Africa at all costs. Especially the crown needs to stay out of Africa, as far as I'm concerned. So what is the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II? Depends on who you talk to. In America, she's seen as someone as an ambassador, as a great person to look up to. And in Great Britain, of course, she's almost worshipped for what she did. And we can talk about the terrible things about being a monarch. She had to endure those things. Your whole life is public. You can't sit down and have a nice day. Yes, sure, they drove around the English country and stuff, but you got bodyguard security. You just don't have regular life. That's another thing about being a monarch. You kind of give up all of that to be royal. And to be honest with you, the legacy of her will be this, is that she forever changed the monarchy. The monarchy is forever changed. The whole idea of the monarchy is so misconstrued now that nobody really understands what it is anymore, to me. The British seem to. They understand. They love it. But it's still a misconstrued concept. This figurehead of a state that's created these borders, they helped create what is Great Britain today. So I guess that's why they look up to the monarchy. At the same time, it was almost a destruction of that very structure. So here comes Queen Elizabeth. She was an ambassador to the world. She was trying to be humanitarian. All those things. You can say that about everybody. But she never really quite threw off the shackles of the bad things that her country did, or her forefathers did. She did not throw off those shackles. Will Charles do it? Maybe. That speech in Barbados said that he may be a different person. We shall see. Anyway, folks, I'm all out of time. I thank y'all for listening to Thought Your World No Speed Limit podcast. Again, if you would like to subscribe, please hit that like button down there and subscribe. The subscription button's there. Make sure you hit the like button below. I haven't heard from any of y'all. Please comment. please leave a comment below on how you feel about anything I've said here. Like I said, if you don't like it, you can say it. If you liked it, go ahead and make your comment. If you just want to make a comment about the Queen because you love the Queen, go ahead. I don't care. And again, I thank y'all. If you're listening to this on Spotify, if you're listening to this on Google, if you're listening to this on Apple or iHeartRadio or Pandora or any of those other platforms, please make sure you follow, like, share, and make sure you leave a review because I need your reviews. I really need your reviews. And I hope you have a wonderful day. You have been listening to Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast.